everybody, and welcome to In Her Words. Today I am speaking with Sarayu Blue. Some of you had the pleasure of seeing her in conversation with Lulu Wang at the summit. She is so funny and sweet and charming. We discuss her current role in Expats, which is getting a lot of notice, how a project ending can make you feel like a heartbreak, and the offer of a new project makes her feel alive. It's such a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
I'm so excited. I love you all and everything you do. And I'm just so thankful to get to chat with you and do this.
Thank you. And we loved having you at the summit. It was so much fun. What a day, right?
It was so wonderful. I mean, to sit there and see this sea of incredible women and human beings who are just, it was just such a warm, wonderful energy. I was really, really moved by it.
It was yeah, we're that was our seventh summit. We had to skip we're almost 10 years, but we had to skip a couple because of the pandemic. And it was so I don't know if Lulu told you, but Lulu had been on the podcast right before
Oh
the
no,
summit.
that's so funny.
And,
I just saw her at the Deadline Contenders. And so
oh, really? Oh, and so we loved her. I mean, obviously, just love her. I've loved her. I mean, I love The Farewell. It's one of my favorite movies. She's just so wonderful. But seeing you two together was we saw such a different side of her personality, and I love that because we were on the podcast. And she was lovely and warm and talking and
yeah.
everything, but you saw her like a little of her silly side and a little of her like I don't know if you bring that out in her or you bring it out in each other,
Well,
but it was so fun to see that.
I think we very much bring it out in each other. She's so funny. She's honestly one of the funniest people I have ever known. And, she's so eloquent and so
Yes,
composed. She has this quality about her. I'm always kind of in awe listening to her speak because I think she just words things so beautifully. And she's so honest. I think that's the
right.
other piece of it is like listening to her speak is always really powerful because it's so honest. And but it is really fun because we have such a well, we have a really close bond and we have a lot of fun together. And so and it's always nice to get to do something like that with somebody because I think it just feels a little less nerve-wracking to
Yes,
have somebody
yes,
to sort of
yes.
share that space with.
Yes, no, it is. And to see the women kind of we talk about it with, our audience and our community, like building each other up and helping each other out. And we get the privilege of seeing it, with you guys upstairs in the green room or listening
Yeah.
to you talk or hearing it before. But I just was telling somebody that one of my favorite moments, so we're upstairs, you guys were up there, in the green room and doing everything. And Mimi Leader, who is, I mean,
I
come
mean,
on, right? I mean, the top of it. And so she's over kind of on our little step and repeat and there, the camera doing a little social thing, and she was like, "I don't know what to say." She was she was like a little nervous, and so Kristen Hahn and Lauren Newstetter jump in with her. They're like, "Let's do it together." And it was so like in the moment, natural. Like Mimi might not be comfortable with an iPhone and
yeah.
and social media, but she's like, okay, let's do it together. Let's talk about what our favorite moment. And
That,
I was just like, I literally got tears in my eyes, and I was telling our social media person, I was like, I mean, that's what it's all about. Like we get to share the on stage and it's a little more practiced, but those moments and seeing
yeah.
you guys kind of joke and laugh and seeing people step in and help each other. It's just that, I mean, it really was. It's like, that's why we do this. That is why we do this.
It is. And it's, I was just talking with a friend about this. It's like, I think for so many of us in this world, right? It's not just the entertainment industry, it's every industry, it's
Yeah.
every experience. And what we all want to see and be reminded of is that we're not alone, that there are people out there who have our backs, and
Yes.
that when we see that happening in real time, it reminds us of our experiences of those moments. And
Right. Right.
or maybe it reminds us that it's possible if we're needing to see that. And I think that's what's so it's always really I mean, Lulu just sort of blows me away because she's somebody who really walks the walk.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
always looking for ways to create opportunities for people, to give them a chance to show what they can do. And
Hmm.
that's the kind of intentionality that makes real change in our industry,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm, mhm. You did, working with her on Expats and with Nicole Kidman, and oh my gosh, I mean, can't even think about that. I'm like, but was working in that really female structure different than, I mean, we hear so, I mean, look at your face. Yes, yes, yes. We
It
hear
is.
so much, like how different was that from other experiences that you've had?
I think one of the major differences that I noticed was a sense of like, we're all in this together and
Mm,
trusting the creative process a little bit, meaning like the collaborative experience with wardrobe was a really important part for the show all around, and certainly for me with Hillary.
mhm, mhm,
And there's this element. I had been on shows or in projects where I would say like the wardrobe supervisor almost didn't have a say. The wardrobe designer,
mhm, okay.
wardrobe designer doesn't like. They may have their ideas, but other people are really going to be the ones who are
Mhm,
picking, right?
mhm.
And I think, or at least that was the sense I would get. And what was really cool about the experiences I've been on, like Expats, like I Feel Bad,
Yeah.
uh, like a project I'm doing now, which is very heavily, like primarily women, is there's a trust for the
Mhm,
creative process. And I'm not
mhm,
saying that doesn't exist on other sets, but there is this element of,
mhm,
collaborative energy between Lulu and Malgosia. So when Malgosia says, our brilliant costume supervisor, by the way, when Malgosia says, this is what I'm feeling for Hillary, that Lulu can then say, oh, yeah, I love that. Can we try this? Can we? And they're really working together. And then
mhm,
I
mhm,
come in and the three of us say, well, what about this? Or, hey, this works better. And that there's like a real care for making sure everybody is getting to have a voice and be
mhm.
creative at the things they're good at.
That's
There's an
yeah.
energy of we hire the creative people and then we let them be creative.
Right,
And
right.
that to me is such a important piece to anything, any, TV, movies, theater, you name it. In this storytelling, books, in the creative world, there is something to be said for letting somebody do what they do.
Right, right. And I
Letting
think, yeah,
them
and I think that is such a personality trait because there's men and women, there's people that just don't
totally.
let that happen. But I can see how, and it happens in meetings, it happens in education, it happens in places where you hire them for a reason. So then let them do their job, let them have their voice. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it can, anyone can have that sort of need to
Sure,
sort of,
sure.
but I at least that was the experience I really saw, specifically around, I think wardrobe is one I notice a lot,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
it's just interesting. It's
I know we
cool.
jumped right into expats and jumped right into Lulu. We didn't even start at the beginning, and I'm so so you're from Madison,
I
Wisconsin.
I
So
am.
I just had a son who graduated from Madison. It
I
has
love
become, in the last 4 years, one of my favorite cities. I had
it's
never been there
yes,
before. So fun,
it is really fun.
so and so much more, like, so cosmopolitan.
I
I don't know
know.
if it's the capital, if it's the beautiful, the beautiful lakes and the university, all of it. Fabulous restaurants,
Such good food. I know.
right?
I know. I mean,
Are
I
your
feel
par is
like
your family
Madison
still there?
is like what?
Is your family still there?
No, actually, my mom lives really close to me actually now. She's
Oh,
in
okay.
California, so that's been really nice. No, yeah, Madison was such a great place to grow up, and I still have such a fondness for it. But yes, it's a surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but I feel like people don't realize how I don't know, sort of vibrant and cultural and like you said,
Yes,
cosmopolitan it actually
yes.
is. Yeah.
Much more so than, and there's such a it's, I've been to a lot of places, I have a lot of kids, but the for the college atmosphere, but it really does kind of elevate it, I think, because of the capital and because of the business that's going on there. It was really a fun place. We loved, loved, loved being there. I was really bummed for those 4 years to end. Good for him.
Oh,
He graduated in 4 years. He did it, but we were, yeah, really, really missing Madison already. My mom friends were going to have a little reunion there next year.
oh, that's sweet. I love it. It's a great place to go in the summer.
Yes,
Those
yes.
winters.
He had some cold winters with winds off those lakes.
Yeah,
And
you got
LA,
really
yeah, an LA kid. He yeah, he got winter.
what a what a brave young man.
No, it was, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, I have to bring that up to her.
I
So
love
I'm curious too, for your family and growing up in the Midwest, what was the creative vibe in your family, and how did you? I mean, you're known for your comedy. You have this amazing drama role with Expats, but what was the creative support and the creativity you had in your family growing up?
It's so interesting, and thank you for asking that and not assuming. I think that's really cool. Because the assumption is often Indian parents, stereotype. And I weirdly come from creative parents. I come
Mhm.
from storytellers.
Oh, nice.
Um, my dad is a Telugu professor, and his passion is translating Sanskrit to Telugu poetry.
Okay.
His passion is translating
Okay.
poetry, and he does a lot of incredible translating work. He
Mm.
teaches Telugu. Well, he taught Telugu. He doesn't teach anymore. And he's a really, he's an amazing storyteller. Amazing. And so he was in the humanities department, social. Um, I'm sorry, I'm half have words. I need more caffeine. He was in the humanities department, in the South Asian studies department, and then my mom has her master's degree in English literature and library
Mm.
sciences.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And she
So you
also
are stories, and yeah, stories everywhere.
and she also was actually a short story writer and still
Okay.
writes short stories, primarily in Telugu,
Hmm.
and does translating work a lot. Her
Hmm.
passion are women writers in the 50s who wrote in Telugu in India.
Gosh.
So I know I come from this like weird little pocket of
Yeah.
like Indian artsy scholars,
Hmm.
and we so so they didn't it's hard to explain. I think my dad did have a lot of concerns. I mean, it's not to suggest that he was like, "Oh, you got this." He was really terrified at the thought of me being an actor, and I think so much of that as I grew up, I started to understand it really came from the fear of how are you going to survive? I see
Hmm.
these shows and these movies. There's no one out
Hmm.
there who looks like you.
Hmm.
How are you going to do this?
Hmm.
And I think as an adult, I was able to understand that perspective a lot more. And let me be clear, even I'm still sometimes like, how am I going to do this? It doesn't go away. But I think that I understand so clearly where his concerns were coming from because um there's very much this immigrant perspective that I
Hmm.
understand, which is no one cares about you in this country. How are you
Hmm.
going to make it? you
Hmm.
know he wanted to know I was going to make it, and it was never like don't be an actor so much as how are you going to survive.
Hmm. Hmm.
um and then with my mom, she's always been my biggest fan. She
Oh, I love that.
bus sized. We have Monday. So the first series regular I ever did was called Monday Mornings in 2013, and there was a poster, and they sent me a poster, and it's on her wall framed.
Oh.
And next to that is I Feel Bad, and now going up is going to be Expats, which
Oh my gosh, I love
and this
that
is
so
a woman
much.
who lives incredibly modestly. She's very old school Indian, and
Yeah,
that's there's nothing extra. There's nothing's for everything's functional. And those are
right.
the only pieces of artwork, along with some photos she's taken that she
Oh
takes.
my gosh, I love that.
So she's my biggest fan. She's always
Mhm,
believed in me. And I think they also kind of knew that I was just not gonna stop until I just have this stubbornness about me, and
mhm,
I was like, sorry is what I'm doing.
mhm.
So
There's
it's never been that they weren't supportive or that it was really just kind of this really deep human, like, can you do this? How
right, right. There's been this theme that's coming up about passion and work ethic, and how, and I hear it in women, I hear it in children of immigrants, and we I think we try to give our children or in society now. It's, oh, just follow your passion. And it's like, well, that's not going to do it.
Well,
It.
that's not
But this
right.
intersection of passion and work ethic that I keep hearing is just, I mean, it's something that I've and then I just keep bringing it up in other conversations because it's so fascinating to me to hear from your, I mean, and almost what I'm hearing from your parents is we hear your passion, we see your passion, we appreciate that, but what's the work that's going to pay the bills, or what's the work ethic that is going to make it reality? And I think that's just such an interesting theme.
Well, that's exactly right. And, it's really because of them that I think I have the grit I have.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there was never any fallback. There was never any, we didn't have lots and lots of money even, so it wasn't like that. So it was very much like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I have to like fight, be ready to fight.
Right,
And it
right,
was, I mean, it's 20 years, right? It's not, it's okay. But I knew what I was signing on for. I knew it wasn't going to just be handed to me. And I think the thing I know about our industry is that, you could say when I got Monday Mornings, that was a show written by David Kelly, David E. Kelly for TNT, starring
mhm,
Alfred Molina, Ving Rhames, Jamie Bamber, Jen Finnegan.
yeah,
Um, and somehow, we thought, oh, they thought this is the break. This is the break, right? Well, that was 2013.
yeah.
And then it was I Feel Bad, and we thought that
Yeah,
was the break.
yeah,
And it's, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe there is no
right,
big break, which is what I
right,
obviously kind of understood. I knew that there
mhm,
was no big break, but it is that awareness that it is always going to be staying, doing the work, staying in the
mhm,
game, staying the course, taking care of yourself so that you can stay in the game and stay the
right,
course.
right.
It's really just a zigzaggy life. The creative life is not it's never necessary. It's I shouldn't say never, but it's rarely one that just makes sense on paper.
Right, yeah, rarely linear, rarely without bumps,
Right.
and, but I think that, seeing all of the work that you've done, and you have worked regularly and you've worked a lot, and I I read something that you said, when you started Expats, or when Lulu reached out to you, that, with all of your success and knowing, we know your name, and you said, I didn't think I could, get to the, work at this level. And part of me, when I read that interview, it made me sad, but also part of me, it was like, why, and you're speaking for so many women in, whether it's business, whether it's medicine, whether it's
Right.
acting, whether it's that, and it's more than just like, oh yeah, everybody has imposter syndrome, you don't think you could do it, but it's, why, what were you feeling then, that, to work with Lulu, to work with Nicole Kidman, that
Yeah.
you felt that.
You know, I think for me, it's a good thing because it means I care.
Mhm.
When I am acting, it is imposter syndrome to some extent, but there's also this element of my husband says I do this every job, and I think I'm only realizing recently how true it may be. But there is an element of like, can I still do this?
Mm,
Now,
mhm,
there are certain roles I might not feel that way with, that I feel a little more confident in
mhm,
because I've been doing it a while and I feel comfortable. But then there are certain ones that I'm like, wow. And, something like expats was going to demand such um, vulnerability and honesty. And
mhm,
I just haven't had to do that kind of work in a long
mhm,
time. And that doesn't mean it's not a part of everything I do. There is a vulnerability and an honesty to everything I do and to everything that I, am a part of in life. But, there was something about expats that reminded me of the kind of work that I did in grad school, where it's so raw, so
mm,
visceral, so
mhm,
real, and just really was going to require like me bearing my soul.
mhm,
And I love that you had a moment of getting a little sad. I think where it makes me a little sad is, when I got out of grad school, and I think this is most of us when they get out of any sort of program, I had this like, put me in, coach.
Right, right,
Let me
right.
at him. I got it. You name it, I can do
Yeah.
it. And I think it is safe to say that 20 years in the industry, that got beaten out of me a little bit.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
got a little like, I don't know if I can still fight.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I felt when I Feel Bad got canceled, which I loved so much and
I
was so
know
nice
you
to
talk
support.
about it like almost like a breakup, like a heartbreak.
For
And
me,
it
it is.
yeah, and it
For
felt
me,
like
it is.
that,
And
yeah.
that's sort of the unfortunate part of being a sensitive soul
Right.
is that I love my roles as much as I love my best friends and my husband and my family. Like it is a part of my heart, you
Yeah.
know? And so when I Feel Bad got canceled, there was and I knew that the chances of getting another lead were going to be slim.
Mhm.
It wasn't like I get to just go lead to lead,
Mhm.
like there are a lot of people who get those kind of opportunities. I knew that it was going to be a fight, and I didn't know if I had the fight left. So
Mhm.
that's the part of me that gets a little sad for
Mhm. Mhm.
people who start to feel like, never mind, I give up. You
Yeah.
win. Now the other side of it was the part that's really cool was that then I got the opportunity and then I got to get back in the ring. And I had that wonderful moment of being scared of whether I could not do it or not. And I celebrate that because that means the heart is waking up again. That means I'm falling in love again. That means my vulnerability is coming back. And it's almost like the blood's coursing through my veins again. And I
Mhm.
had to really sort of um, rip off the scabs and get back to the core of me and be able to be that vulnerable artistic self again. So I actually celebrate that I was scared because it means I'm
That you
invested.
care. Yeah. Yep. It's that feeling of, yeah, that if you're a little nervous or if you're a little, that you
I'm
do
coming
care.
back to
That,
life.
yeah, that you do care. And I also find it interesting that we all as women, and I don't know, maybe men do it a little bit too, but like I felt sad for you and like, why wouldn't she think that she's so fantastic? And then yet I get a job offer and I do the same thing to myself. Why
Right.
would they offer that job to me? And I find it so interesting, and I hear that we hear that so much, like, why would you think you couldn't have that job? And I'm like, well, why would you think you couldn't have that? And we do it to ourselves.
There's an element of this. America Ferrara has a great uh I don't know what you call it. It's not a speech, but she was doing a panel and she talks about imposter syndrome.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what she's basically saying, which I do think is true, is well, of course I had that moment where I thought I wasn't going to get it again. And of course you had these moments because what in the system has said to you, you are deserving of this over and over again.
Right,
What
right.
in the system
Yep.
has set you up to feel like
There'll be another
this is
role or
possible?
another job. Yep, yep.
And so there is like a thing about imposter syndrome where it's like I don't know if I actually had my fear around being able to do the role wasn't imposter syndrome. It was for me it was me sort of coming back to life is the way I
Mhm,
put it.
mhm.
Somebody who was heartbroken coming back to life.
Right, right.
Because the truth of the matter is it's not to say that I don't have imposter syndrome. It's to say that that moment for me was an
Right.
imposter syndrome.
Wasn't what was causing that, yep.
That's right. But the imposter syndrome aspect for me has more to do of like, am I, is the system going to give me an opportunity to keep going
Mhm,
and growing my career? So
mhm.
I don't know if I have that because I actually have always felt like, yes, give me the shots, let me go. And well, but then maybe it did get beaten out of me. And maybe that
Yeah.
was the sad part. Yeah. Again,
And
that's
when
sort of,
when your heart gets broken and you have to rebuild it, like you said, you have to
that's
start
right.
feeling that again. You, do you so many people, so many actors, they say, comedy's harder. Do you like doing drama? I mean, this is a departure from your most recent roles. I know you've done, but do you have a preference? Do you feel like do
I mean,
you
I love comedy. Comedy just makes me happy. I think
uh,
it's fun. I just delight in comedy and I'll always love comedy. Comedy is sort of comedy is home for me. That's
yeah,
home base. But I've always loved both. I mean, I've always just
okay,
loved acting.
yeah,
Monday mornings was not comedy. I mean, it
right,
was,
right.
and I think there's also this element of like being funny was part of the way I got my foot in the door.
Mm, mhm.
Because a
Mhm.
lot of times when you're not sort of what the physical type of their expectations are or what they've always
Mhm.
seen, the thing that will sort of cinch it is that when you can make them laugh. That was true for me.
Right, right.
Making people laugh helped me get into doors that I may not normally have gotten into.
Mhm. And so
Um,
many people start out that way, right? So
yeah,
that they feel that way. That makes everyone comfortable, and that makes yeah.
and being able to land the laugh is a
Mhm.
tangible moment that you
Mhm.
might book a job. If you can land the laugh, which, when I did, I got jobs that that helped move things along, move my career
Mhm.
along. And I think
Mhm.
that comedy has always been really fun, but also gratifying in that way.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
really just love acting. I mean, I just love acting. I love storytelling. I love telling you know, being the kind of person in a story and telling their story,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like. Like I just love it.
Yeah, and obviously, I Feel Bad was so funny, and I'm so bummed that I was so bummed when it got canceled. It was so funny. It was such a true like wife mom moment. And it was so real. And
Well, that
then
was
go
special that
ahead.
it was from the mom's POV,
Yeah,
which
it
is
was
so rare.
so rare. And it was just I just remember watching it with my husband and laughing because it was like, oh my God, yes. We all and and maybe there's a little bit now, there's so many funny like,
Yeah.
marriage memes and social
Oh,
media sites that are on that. But that I feel like that this was a kind of a predecessor to these little funny mom or wife memes that are so popular now. It was out there first.
it was really smart, and I have to give a lot of credit to Asim Batra, who created and show ran the show,
Mhm.
because the jokes that and the stories that she were telling were so, I mean, it's sort of ahead of its time, I guess I could say.
Yeah, it
Like
was.
was one of those shows that if it just come out a year or
Yeah.
two later, it would have been,
Yeah.
because she was really even, and Madhur Jaffrey, who played my mom on that show, was so funny, so
So
iconic. And
funny.
she played it was not stereotypical. It was
Right,
such
right.
a great mom character. And
Yeah.
that's, such a testament to Asim and the room she ran. She ran such a
Y
great room.
yeah, it was. It was so funny. And then I was thinking about, To All the Boys I Loved Before, and Never Have I Ever, and I mean, they're such sweet stories and such, I mean, my watching those with my daughter, loving that so much. But the casts of all of those shows and the writing of all of those shows is it they're all really groundbreaking, and they're all really moving things forward, especially for these young South Asian actresses. And
Yeah.
how do you feel, you saying you didn't see yourself, and now, and we see so much about representation, but it's not only that you're not a South Asian actress in a white cast, hoping somebody's coming behind you. You're doing it with these young women and these young men coming up. And I think that's a difference. That's a real
It's
difference.
so thrilling.
Yeah.
It was so cool to, you know, I remember joining To All the Boys, and I joined in 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So they already had kind of a really tight-knit little family,
Hmm.
and they were all so welcoming, so warm, so
Hmm.
wonderful. I still talk to Lana and Janelle and my little peanut Anna and Madeline, and we have a little text thread, and we all, I mean,
Oh,
they're just like family to me,
we don't
and
want that story to ever end. We want it to keep going and knowing
I
and so
know.
Kitty and what's happening with everyone. I want them to keep going.
And they're such good-hearted people, like it's really, really, it's just so cool. And then, entering that world and then going to Never Have I Ever and just being in a sea of South Asians. Like,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like, what a dream. And I love Purna so
Right.
much. And I love Richa and Maitreyi, it's like, and Mindy, who created this
Yes.
world, it's just such a spectacular group of humans, and it's just so exciting to know that, like, now the doors are really opening. Now
Right.
there's like,
Right.
it's not the doors, the floodgates are opening. There's so much possibility, and I do think we have to be intentional about making sure it keeps going.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know, but it's just really exciting to see it happening.
Well, and I think there's something to be said, and we can get into a whole discussion on, theatrical versus streamers versus linear television and all that. But I think one thing that Netflix has really done is, whether it's the South Asian stories, whether it's the just all the foreign language, projects, whether it's a documentary or a narrative, or the Korean stories, there's so much just international
Yeah.
stories that they're allowing just exposure to for everyone, and not only the audience that is like, oh my god, finally something that I want to see, but all audiences
That's
just.
the thing I wish more people would understand who have the opportunities to, greenlight these kinds of projects or give them a platform, or more importantly, give them a platform and support them because it
Mhm,
requires both. That's where the
mhm.
intentionality comes in. Is that what I'm finding is audiences like to discover people. They like
Yes.
to discover shows, they like to discover stories. And that's part of what's really exciting about when there was all these, now that there's all these platforms, is there's also more opportunities
Mhm.
for people to come in and surprise you with their brilliance.
Yes.
It's so amazing. I mean, that's what's so great about the way Lulu is so intentional in her storytelling and casting, is she
Mhm.
is really giving opportunities to people who may otherwise not always get opportunities to shine like this.
Right. No, and she does such a great blend of making sure that there's because I think about The Farewell. Like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. And, did it get more exposure because Aquafina was in it? And I think she does such a nice job of casting, and of the teams, and who she puts together to make sure that it's seen. And that's a really, and I think we're seeing that in a lot of different projects to make sure. But I know after, and I was a film buyer for AMC Theaters forever, for ArcLight forever, and wanting these films. When you see a film like a film like Parasite, and that is just not only critical success but a box office success, and then it's like, how are we not, how is that ball not rolling so fast for all of these different, just all of these different countries to have input
Yeah.
and have films going wide or have projects going wide. It's almost, yeah, like exactly what you said, how do we keep it going instead of these fits and starts of pieces coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it is a desire to really, it goes back for me to um hiring creatives and letting them be creative.
Mhm,
Because I
mhm.
think what ends up happening often is we saw this a hit, now let's make another one just like it. Instead of, oh, what's the story you want to tell next? What's the
Mhm,
story you want to tell?
mhm, mhm.
Or with in the case of actors, maybe it's I saw them in this role, that means they have to do this role again. Or is it, oh, I saw them do this, can they do this now? Like,
Right, right.
or getting to know, sort of explore different abilities, because I think what happens is a desire to sort of create the same thing again and again. And I hope that we can start allowing
Mhm.
some creativity among what storytellers bring to the table, because really that is what storytellers are meant to do.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. And I was just thinking about, and I was blanking on his name, that did American Fiction.
Oh, Cord Jefferson.
Yes, when he accepted his, and he said, we need these films as well. We need these, these small films, these, that breakout, as well as the big
That was the
blockbuster.
best speech.
It was so great.
And I think it's a reminder that I think we always have to keep saying and keep reminding people, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I mean, it's so much of that world is out of my realm. I don't, I'm such a, I can theorize all I want, but at the end
right,
of the day, I'm
right,
not the one
right.
buying the projects and putting the projects out there. And I know everyone has their reasoning, but of
Mhm.
course, I'm always going to be the one I'm drawn to stories told by real people who have, dimension.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
drawn to, of course, the YA world is exciting and fun and charming, and I want to see adults call me crazy.
Exactly. That's what it always is. I'm always like, celebrate the end, celebrate the end. We all want to see Fall Guy. It looks so fun.
No, right?
Popcorn and
Right.
we all want to see it. And we want to see, and we want to see this. So I think that's no, I think that is interesting. Do you write do you
You
like to
know,
write? Do you think you'll
I
direct and produce? When you
I
said you're not making the decisions right now, that's not what you're
well, no, you
or
know what
is.
it is I have attempted it, and I do more for theater, I would say, in terms of
Mhm,
like
mhm,
storytelling type things,
mhm,
like The Moth and things like that.
mhm,
Um, I think that I would love to write. I have an idea for like things, but I really want the support of a writer to write with, because the
okay,
way I always
mhm.
see it is I spent 20 years getting really good at this acting thing, or at least trying to. I shouldn't say getting good. Come on, Bubba.
You did, you can say it.
Trying to get good. Thank you. I don't have to have imposter syndrome.
No.
But it's one of those things where I just feel like I need the support,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's kind of because I think it's a real skill set, because I
oh,
admire the skill set
yes.
and I revere it. I honestly revere writers. I
Mhm,
do, to the core. And so if I could direct, or not direct, maybe theater, but if I could write with somebody and co-create something, I would be
mhm.
really.
Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. We can have the best actor, the best director. If the writing's not there, if the story's not there, I mean, just like everything we've talked about today, it keeps coming back to it has to be a good story. It has to be storytelling. Oh, look at that baby.
Otis
Hello.
just wants to say hi.
Hi.
I'll go in a minute.
You're very, very well behaved. Um, so tell
Ish.
me, I know you're busy and you're working right now. What do you like to watch or read or listen to or podcasts or that kind of is your escape when you're not working?
Wish I could be better about podcasts, if I'm being honest. I think I don't tend to do a lot of podcasts because if I'm in the car, I tend to like blast, my 90s hip hop and scream to the top of my lungs, because I don't have to offend anyone since I'm in the car by myself with my voice. But as far as like downtime, I love watching comedies always. And I love reading a great thriller. And I can like escape into anything. I was talking recently about a book called Happy by Selena. Celine, I want to make sure I have her name right. Hold on, because I don't want
I'm
to
going to write
be.
this down. We have a little book nook for women in entertainment that we're always recommending, and we
It's
love
such
it.
a delightful read, and I do find that like it's nice to just be able to. It depends on my mood, but like I like having books that I can disappear in,
Hmm. Hmm.
completely. Like I want a world. I
Yeah.
love like books where they talk about food and sensuality, and like I like a whole world to get into. Okay, yes, Selena Basra is just, the book is called Happy, and
Okay.
I just like, but I love to do I mean, I also can just sit in a corner and look out the window and daydream for hours. Like it's weird. Like I can just, and music and dancing. I mean, I do a lot of just,
Just to
I'm
kind
such
of
a little dreamer at the core.
I love that. I love that. Well, it was so nice meeting you. Thank you so much for giving us a part of your Sunday. And
Oh my God. Great.
we love expats. We are so excited for it to keep going and to get into this Emmy world that we're getting into. And it's heartbreaking. I'm always worried. I'm like, don't think it's like light and fluffy, but I mean, I don't think anyone would think that looking at it, but
No, but I know what you mean, because I was just
it's,
saying, I was saying earlier today, it's a very difficult show to describe
right?
because it's so rich, it's so nuanced, it's so human. And I think that's the word I use to describe it the most, is human.
Yes.
It's very slice of life, because it's not so heavy that it's like, well, I guess I have to be but I'm mad. I'm too, it's
Right,
not
right.
debilitatingly sad, but it is very real. And that is the piece of it that's compelling, but also at times
Yes. You
wrenching.
know what it was for me? It made me stop. I can't think in such absolutes. If that happened to me, I would do this. And watching these women go through this, it's like, hmm, would I? Could I?
Yeah.
How do you think of these, abstract things that could happen to you or happen to your family? And no,
Yeah.
I would do this, 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 and this. And you don't. You
No, and
don't.
I think that's such a great way to put it. And that's what Lulu really wanted to do with the show, which is, you know, it's not really about anyone's a villain and anyone's a hero and
Right?
anyone. There is really truly this place of living in the gray areas and the
Yeah.
messy parts and the raw parts, and just it really, you develop a different sense of empathy with this show
You
because
do.
all of a sudden, I mean, she even starts with that, right? How does the perpetrator feel? What does it feel like to be the person who caused this? And then you really, dive into that experience that, all these women are going through. But really, what is it like to be the person that Mercy was in this case?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
really, it's amazing what she did with the show.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And did not read the book first, which now I'm like, do I want to go back? Because you just have such an image and everything, but it's a real piece that makes you think. And especially I think as women, it makes us think.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love to, I mean, I know we have to, I'm not trying to keep going, but for me personally, I know I've talked about it a lot, but I really loved just Hillary, the layers of watching this woman, not sure if she wants to be a mother. What does that look like? Her marriage is falling apart. Her friendships are falling apart. It's a really dimensional experience of a 40 something woman,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's so beautiful because I know that I've had friendships that have not lasted,
Of
and
course.
broken
Yes.
up. And right, you say, of course, but we don't talk about these things.
No.
And
No.
and I've seen in my own history of like what it looks like if I chose not to have a child, which we didn't have children. And there were really interesting experiences while I went through the journey of deciding if we wanted to have kids. And so I think it's just a really beautiful thing to see just a character go
Right.
through
Right.
these experiences.
Right. Were those touches of personal things you could relate to? Why you were did that make you more interested in the role?
Um, it did. What's really interesting to me though with Hillary, I mean, they were certainly touchstones. They were.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, but Hillary is so different from me.
mhm, mhm.
It's funny, I'm all done up because I had deadline contenders and they said just to stay in the same clothes. But if we hadn't had this podcast, the first thing I would have done is rip this all off and put on my sweats, like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am really, I was not, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I didn't grow up having that kind of like experience of
mhm.
my mom is not a makeup woman. I didn't learn all these, things about hair and makeup. And I think the first time I got my brows done, I was like in my 20s, like I just, like, what are and so Hillary and I are so different and just, she's so crafted and curated and put together,
Mhm, mhm.
controlled. And I'm
Right,
really a
very
little bit
controlled.
more like a walking disaster. Um, but, that was the fun of it. I
That's
didn't
how
get
you
into
act, to be someone else.
Yeah, and I feel very lucky that I get to play these kinds of
Yeah,
roles because I think a
yeah.
lot of times people get cast sort of who they are, which is also fun in its
Mhm.
own art form. But I just feel very lucky when I get to do things that aren't. I mean, to be honest, Emmett was probably more me. I feel bad is more who I am. I'm a little bit more of like a ridiculously flawed klutz of a human,
Oh my gosh.
and that was also fun. I mean,
Yeah,
I love.
right, right, yeah, yes, of course. But no, the polished Hillary you did not look out of character. You
Well,
did
thank
not.
you. I mean, trying to walk in those heels alone is out of character.
Right. Well,
Oh,
Sarayu, thank you so much for doing this. It was so great to see you again. Thank you again for being at the summit. You are family now. We're going to be calling you all the time to do
thank
stuff.
you.
Yes, yes, you're so generous with your time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you. I had such a delightful time at the summit, and I had a delightful
Good.
time today, and I look forward to what's to come.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.